Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Scarecrow, and welcome to Classic Movie Rambles, where I talk about all movies that I find in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Robocop 3. It's an action sci-fi from 1993. It's about 1 hour and 40 minutes long, starring John Burke, Nancy Allen, and Remy Rayan. And the movie starts with a TV commercial for Delta City. It's for the future generations, for the children. And then it cuts to to evacuating the poor part of town, because there's where they're supposed to build this new Delta City. And they show this corporate entity known as Omni Consument Products or something like that, like shortened for OCP, and how they gently put people on buses and try to escort them out of the area that they're supposed to demolish. And this family that's watching this TV is there's this kid named Nico and her parents, and later she's put to bed. Nico, the little child, and talks to her father and all this caring stuff, and then a wrecking ball comes right through the window and everything breaks loose, and the TV guy on the TV screen says, "I buy that for $1," and that's a reference to the other earlier Robocop movies in the series. And then on the streets, everyone has been taken out and forced onto these buses, and Nico and her parents as well. And there's an elderly black woman, or older black woman. She gets hits down to the ground, and her name is Berta. And she uses a detonation device to make an explosion and cause confusion. And she grabs a megaphone and yells on it these buses are going nowhere, and don't get on them. And then Nico's parents is forced onto one of those buses in the confusion, and Nico gets left alone. And so while she's alone, there's no one there, she moves around, and one of the OCP's officers kind of chases her down with a machine gun, and she gets dragged into a van where Berta's gang, because she's the rebel leader of the resistance of this kind of, she's fighting for the poor and those who are about to get evicted, and the OCP officer loses sight of them and then drive away. And then cutting to another scene where a guy is supposed to hold up a donut shop, and this is kind of funny. He goes in there, and the owner says, like, "Well, what do you want?" And then he pulls up this rifle, this semi-machine gun, and he threatens the owner, and he gets like all the cops in there like turn on him, because cops eat donuts and drink coffee, so all are there on their break, and all these laser pointing sights are on his head and over his body. Now, how does it feel to be the idiot, or some schmuck comment? And the cops argue like, it was your turn last time. They can't decide on who's supposed to bring this guy in. And they start to chant Lewis, which is the female cop played by Nancy Allen, to do the job. But they get interrupted by a police comm call that there's on the comms that there's some van that's driving recklessly, and they kind of go after that. And Robocop almost gets the call to follow. And the van that they're following is actually the van which Berta and Nico is in. And so they follow him. They cut up with the car, this yellow van. And Moreno, the driver of the van, which is yellow, the yellow van, he uses a remote control to change the lights of the traffic lights. So he can basically go through the traffic and then change it. And there's a car crash, and Lewis's car kind of flip over, and she crashed into this other guy with a fancy red Porsche. And they think that they're getting away, Berta and her gang, but Robocop is on their trail. Meanwhile, that is happening. This guy in the red Porsche, or this sports car, kind of is acting cocky against Lewis, and they call for backup, and he's kind of a pain in the ass, and then he gets killed for no apparent reason by a sharp blade, because the area that they crashed in is basically splatterpunk territory, and that's a more of an 80s thing. Like, gangs and punks and that sort of thing. And meanwhile, Robocop is following this yellow van, and then he hears Lois's voice on the comms saying that she needs backup, and then he refuses a direct order by the boss, like turn back. He turns back to, you know, basically save his only friend and partner, Lois. And so the splatter punks move in on the cars, and they throw Molotov cocktails, which are basically like fire bombs. And Robocop drives to the top of this. It's basically a parking lot, and he changes his arm into a machine gun prosthetic kind of thing, and he just clicks it on, and he drives off the ledge of the parking lot, and the car kind of slams down into the ground, and he just shoots a hole in the roof, and he steps up and he guns down the rest of the bad guys. It's kind of stupid actually, but it's kind of cool because it's like, you know, robots and stuff. Back in 19 whatever, this was kind of a cool thing because kids, robots, yeah. And he basically takes them out, but there's two guys left. So he goes after them, and they try to set him on fire. So they throw like the remaining Molotov, gasoline or fluid on him and light him on fire. And he follows them into a house, and he's just walking on because he's a robot now. And he sets up the sprinklers, and the two bad guys are kind of arguing, and then he kind of holds them up, and they bring him in. And then Anne drives Robocop home, but on the way they see all this domestic violence that the OCP are causing while forcing people out of their homes. And Anne almost hits Nico by a car, and she runs into a church. And Robocop, he's recording all of this, and then we cut to Kanemitsu, which is the person that really owns OCP, is the Japanese boss. And this is a video call, and he kind of basically yells out to the CEO of OCP in Detroit, and he's basically calling him out and everything, yelling at him that he can't really get the job done. And then the video call ends, and the CEO kind of yells at his chairmen and workers that are with him basically tells them to get out of there. He also tells this character in charge of security called Fletch that he was supposed to deal with this Robocop problem. And the CEO also talks to this the officer in charge of this forcing people out of the home business, the evacuation in quotes, is called McDaggett. And I think that the movie makers want to make the OCP look really bad, so they have this Nazi kind of reference. The OCP officers and military and all the gunmen, I guess you call them, they're dressed in grey, and they have this British accent, and they're awfully violent. But he tells Daggett to deal with this problem, Robocop, if it becomes a problem. And meanwhile, what this is happening, Kanemitsu basically, he's in Japan. So he sends his own cyborg to deal with the problem himself, because he really doesn't trust the OCP to do their job. So he sent this more or less human-like kind of cyborg with a katana, a Japanese sword. And the robot is called a Motomo. I think it's a play on words like automaton or something, because it's something to do with technology and robots and stuff like that. And then Fleck, basically the guy charged of security, he goes down to the police station to talk to Dr. Lazarus about, is there a way to basically cut out emotions, because Robocop earlier disobeyed a direct order to follow the van of the terrorists, but he refused it and saved his partner. So they come up with a deal. They can install this little gizmo chip kind of thing in his head that basically turns off his emotions, so he be a brainless slave and obey. Dr. Lazarus kind of says that she's supposed to do it, but she doesn't. And then he leaves. And then Lazarus looks at the Robocop feed, and the Robocop makes a kind of like from the video feed of Nico, he kind of sees his own son in that somehow from memory, because basically I think that's also the thing that makes Lazarus decide not to put in the chip, because he basically, that would remove every kind of, or the last hope of him becoming human, or have some human emotions and memories, so she doesn't follow through with it. And then the Robocop goes out on a mission. He's supposed to follow up this thing, because now he's fully repaired and can go out in the field again, so he's going to investigate the church. And Anne Louise kind of jumps in the car with him, and they go there, but she's not wearing any body armor this time because she was off duty. She was kind of surprised that he was out so early, so they jump in the car and they go down to the church. And they go in, because basically they are doing the bidding of the OCP also, but in the police kind of way. So they're trying to get these people to leave the church, but when they're looking inside, they're basically just refugees, and people that just want to stay warm, because they don't have any homes anymore. They're basically out on the streets. And then the OCP is kind of outside. McTaggart is there. He's calling them out on a megaphone, and they go out, and Lois kind of explains that they're just trying to stay warm, but McTaggart kind of will force them out. So Robocop looks back in and back out and kind of make this judgment, because one of his prime directives is not actually to oppose an OCP officer. He's supposed to uphold the law and protect the innocent. So all the other three prime directives he's upholding, but the fourth last one, he can't really disobey an OCP officer because of the program, because OCP made him sort of a fail-safe kind of thing. So he basically fires a warning shot and tells him, like, you're making a mistake, a big mistake, and have it your way. And then McTaggart shoots Lewis, and she gets mortally injured because she doesn't have any body armor. And the rest of the guys open fires upon Robocop, and the ones inside the church kind of sees this, and they take out the firearms of their own and try to defend him, and they drag him into the church. Him and Lewis, and Robocop gets up and he carries Anne to the altar, where she basically is dying because she's gunshot to the wounds and stomach and everything. She won't survive, and she said, "Promise me this thing, that you get him for me." And he says, "Of course I will," because his last friend, his last hope to humanity, has to promise this. And then she dies, the officer down. And then they escape down to the sewers, and they go through sewage to the secret entrance of the rebels. And then we cut to Fletch actually informing Lazarus by video call that Robocop has gone rogue, and it's all her fault, and he might just put in a good word for her at this point. And then Robocop says something, that there's a tracker inside of him, and Nico kind of helps him get the tracker out, because OCP has to have a GPS device on him, I guess. And they throw it away, and this one unlucky guy, he's kind of like follow up on, they follow the tracker underneath the earth, and he goes to a manhole, and he grabs it up, and then one of the characters go like, "Oh, did you booby trap the sewer entrance?" "Yeah, I think I did." And there's like, he pulls up the thing, and it kind of explodes. It's like, okay, they're not gonna find these guys right now. And then this other character, Kuntz, gets upset by this. And this is important later, because he's not actually what he seems. And then, as of course, Fletch tells Lazarus about that he has gone rogue, Robocop has gone rogue. And he also has to tell his boss that things has gone wrong. So they go to the OCP building, to talk to the CEO. And it's not going really good for the company now, because people kind of see that the OCP is kind of the bad guy, and they're forcing people out just to make their own industries and stuff. They're just doing their own selfish act. So the stocks of OCP are basically falling. And there is this office guy, he jumps out of the window because his life is ruined, and he falls down from this high building and he hits the ground. And as he hits the ground, the Motomo cyborg comes out of a limousine and walks up the building. And Fletch and Johnson arrive, the two of the chairmen, and they go into the CEO office, and he's talking to this Motomo cyborg and basically tells him that he has to find Robocop and put him away. And then Fletch talks to the CEO, and he gets fired because he didn't do his job right. And so he leaves. And then Johnson gets promoted for coming up with a good idea of how to deal with the situation. And in the background we can hear a gun cocking, and Fleck basically kills himself. Cut to the rebels trying to fix Robocop, but they don't have the efficient tools. So Robocop basically tell them to go get Lazarus. So they send Nico away to the police station to get her. Meanwhile, the Motomo cyborg goes to the old rebel hideout to look for the rebels, and he gets confronted by the remaining rebels there, and he basically kills them, and he finds half of a map there. And Lazarus and Nico arrives at the new rebel hideout, and they start to fix Robocop up and make him fit for fight, as it were. And Lazarus deletes the fourth rule for Robocop. So now he basically can oppose the OCP officers. He's not under their control. And Nico goes to talk to Robocop after he's fixed up and all that. And they talk a bit, and Robocop realizes that he was looking into a terminal earlier when he went out with Anne, and then he found out that Nico's parents were actually dead. So these buses they were on, they didn't go to nowhere. It's kind of dark, and Nico doesn't realize this, but Robocop kind of comforts her, and she falls asleep on his lap. And then the cyborg goes to a truck stop because he realized that the half a map he's had is just one half. He needs two, so he gets a normal road map from a truck stop, and he destroys a sign or something, and then he kind of figures out that where the next rebel hideout is. So he's just gonna go there, I guess. And Lazarus learned that the rebel also stole a prototype jet design that she made for Robocop, but it was never field tested. And this was picked up at the beginning of the movie at the police armory, among with weapons and stuff. And then Robocop remembers that Anne Lewis died, and he promised that he would avenge her. So he has unfinished business. So he leaves the rebel hideout to go to the police station, and he arrives there, and the police chief kind of says, there's a warrant after your arrest, and he says, yes, I know. Where can you direct me to the OCP division? He says, right down the corridor, you can't miss it. Thank you. And he kind of raises his machine gun arm and says, you might want to call the fire department. And he just proceeds to go in there and kick the shit out of them, and he interrogates a guy, find where McDaggett is, basically. And then we cut to McDaggett himself in a sleazy hotel room. and he's talking to Kanemitsu over a video comm. And then Coons, the person from earlier, he comes in and he's basically the snitch. He has ratted out where the rebels were hiding. He's basically feeding Daggett information. And then Robocops arrive at the scene in front of this sleazy hotel, and he saves a girl from two opposing OCP officers that basically are trying to rape her. It's kind of it's a very, very dark tone, but they make fun of it, somehow making it a funny scene. And then Robocop goes into the hotel room, goes up the elevator, and he basically cuts a hole through the door in the shape of him into McDaggett's room, and he goes in, and he's pointing the gun at McDaggett, and he sees Coons. For 1 second he moves, and then McDaggett jumps out of the window with a briefcase. It's basically an arm bomb, and he falls down like a sunroof and he slides down to the street, and he gets into an OCP van and he drives away. Robocop follows up, and he steals this pink pimp car, and he basically follows McDaggett down the street. And McDaggett, the OCP truck that McDaggett is in, there's also a driver in front, of course. And McDaggett, it's basically a weapon armed truck, so he basically takes these guns and he starts firing at Robocop's pimp car, I guess. And there's not much left of the car, and Robocop follows them up, and you know, they come to this stretch where some kids are playing, I guess, street hockey, and the OCP trucks drives by, and Daggett throws out some dollar bills that he was supposed to bribe Coons with, or pay Coons for the information, but the deal never happened. So he basically has them out, and he throws them out in the streets, and the kids kind of owe money, and they go like for it, and Robocop has to stop because of one rule: playing children. He stops up. And then we cut back to the new rebel hideout, and basically Coons gets there, and he pulls a gun on Berta and says, like, it's all over now. What do you mean by it's all over? And then another guy comes up behind Coons with another gun and tells him to drop it. And then moments later, the OCP kind of storms the rebel hideout, and Berta gets killed, and Nico escapes through a vent with Lazarus' help, and Lazarus get captured, and they basically bring her back to base, and after that scene, Johnson and McDaggett goes to the Detroit police station, and they basically forcing the police to force people out of their homes, because tomorrow they're basically building this new future of Detroit in Cadillac Heights. But the police says, that's not what police officers do. And Johnson says, like, think about your job now, Lieutenant. Think about your pension and all your savings. It will all be forfeit if you don't do this. You basically get fired. You have nothing. And then the police chief, he just throws down his badge. I'm not having that. I'm going to save my family. That's more important than this. And everybody in the police station, the officers and detectives and all, they just throw down their badges and just leaves, because they want to protect their families, their homes. And so the criminals are basically free to roam, but McDaggett stopped him, one of them, and he just tells him that, do you want to make some easy money? Do you want to have guns? Do you want to help us? It's basically this corrupt thing, like they're going to fight the cops because they choose to go to the people's side they're actually supposed to be. And so basically OCP is basically recruiting criminals now to fight by their side. And then cutting to the TV station, showing a propaganda movie made by the OCP, which is a cartoon character named Johnny Rehab. He's basically kicking the ass of criminals. And then cutting to a news reporter reading Robocop has killed a few nuns. She doesn't believe that, and of course, and she storms out of the room. And the other reporter goes, technical difficulties, cutting to that. And then cutting to Nico in a vent. She is hacked into the video feed, and she finds out that Lazarus has been locked up in a closet, in this cleaning closet. And the bad guys gear up, and the remaining cops goes down to Cadillac heist, and the remaining rebels join them because they have nothing more to fight for when Berta is gone. So they basically join the cops in this one last struggle. And Robocop goes back to the rebel hideout, and he sees the devastation of it all, and he gets confronted by the cyborg, which basically they fight, and he falls down to the ground, and Robocop he loses his arm, he gets cut out, and he gets his machine gun replacement, and which is a multiple purpose gun, and he kind of fires a rocket at the cyborg's head, and it explodes. And then Daggett revolts against the OCP CEO, and Nico helps Lazarus send a message out to the people to tell the truth about OCP and what they're doing. And then Robocop is more or less crippled, or his legs are not working, so he crawls, and he finds this jetpack device that he left there in the first place. So he powers up, and then he can basically go on. And then the OCP attacks Cadillac heists, and they come in with this tank and guns and all stuff. And then Robocop returns, and he basically kills the tank, and he shoots down the remaining bad guys. And Daggett arms the briefcase, and the OCP finds out that Lazarus has been sending the message to the public and telling the truth. So they basically storm into the closet, and she hits the guy with a ladder or a chair or something, and he loses his gun, and she picks it up, and she escapes with Nico. And Robocop confronts Daggett, and two other cyborgs move into the room, and Robocop he fights them, but he gets thrown to the ground, and Nico and Lazarus arrive, and the rest of the personnel there, including the CEO, he says, like, "You can have OCP, it's yours, sayonara, bye-bye," and he goes. And everybody leaves, and there's a fight, and Nico and Lazarus hack the cyborgs to attack each other, so they fight each other and they kill each other, and that sets up the failsafe in Daggett's briefcase, which is actually a bomb, so they have like 13 or 14 seconds before it detonates. And Robocop kind of rolls into this jetpack prototype thing, and he burns Daggett's leg so he can't move, and he grabs Nico and Lazarus and flies out, and the building explodes. And then cutting to Cadillac heists, where the police and the rebels are dealing with the aftermath, and Robocop is there, of course. And then Kanemitsu, the Japanese boss, basically the owner of OCP, he comes down there and look at the devastation. He has the CEO of OCP with him as well, and he basically fires the CEO, so he doesn't have a job, and he goes to Robocop and he bows like a traditional bow, and he admits defeat basically, and he goes away. And then the CEO kind of says, like, "I gotta hand it to you. Well, what did they call you? Murphy, was it?" "No, my friends call me Murphy. You call me Robocop." So that's how the movie ends. And I actually like this movie. And I have a little funny story about this that I basically had a birthday party when I was a little kid, and instead of I got all my friends there, and basically instead of going out and playing, guns and robbers, I said, hey, I got this cool movie, and we watched Robocop, and I mean, I'm one of those like older generations. I grew up in the '80s, so it's more or less okay. There was another type of filter on guns and violence were more okay. You could show guns and violence, but not blood and stuff like that. So a few guys, young kids, we were eating, cake and snacks, and we were drinking Coca-Cola. You getting the sugar high, and we were watching this awesome action movie on VHS, and it's like all good memories. And probably after the movie was done, we went out and played and all that. So, can I recommend this movie? Absolutely. It's one of those action movies, and I think it's aged quite well. There's some special effects that's kind of like, yeah, like not so nice, but overall it's kind of good. It has a gritty feel, kind of dark, and it's a good movie, really. Yeah, but I hope you like this, and take care and see you next time.